Hey, good morning, everybody. It is Mike, and this is Saturday Morning Live, Multifamily Unplugged. How you doing today? I hope everybody had a great week and is either still working and being intentional about that this morning, or is recovering from the week. I'll tell you, the last couple of weeks have been crazy with travel and networking events and speaking and the launch of a new deal that we rolled out. So it's been an interesting, busy couple of weeks, that's for sure. So, we start every Saturday, right? We talk about intention, your intentionality. What are you trying to do? Did you set some goals at the beginning of the year for yourself? Were those goals something that you wanted to accomplish business wise, personally? Did you want to travel? How are you doing on those goals? Are you still being intentional about achieving them and working towards them? Always talk about that mindset, right? Our mindset is really, we have to stay engaged and kind of just keep pushing the ball forward. So glad that you're here. We're here every Saturday morning. So if you follow us on social media or on YouTube, you'll get notified when we're going to go live and when these events are going to come up. So I'm excited today about our guest, Ryan Bakey. He's a CPA. His branding is Learn Like a CPA. He's from the southwest suburbs of Chicago. And I met Brian, a couple months back at an event here in Chicago we were both at. And he's got an interesting story, an interesting journey, and brings a lot of great information on tax savings and benefits to the investors. So listen in. If you know somebody who is out there this morning that probably needs to hear this message, why don't you go give them a nudge and make sure you've got your coffee. Let me bring Brian in real quick. Hey, Ryan, how you doing?
Hey, good morning. How are
Hey,
you?
I didn't just call you Brian, did I? No, I called
It's
you
all
Ryan.
right. People mess up the name all the time.
So, how's business these days?
Yeah, we are always adapting. So I think as the market kind of shifts and changes, you have to be ready for that. So lenders nowadays, a lot of them are charging points and higher fees. So deals aren't penciling out as much nowadays anymore. But we're always ready, and I think that's one of the key parts of this game is that if you are not, even if you're not in the ability to buy right now, you should still be running deals so that way when a deal does present itself, you're going to be ready. The you never want to have to get ready. So if you just stay ready the entire time, then there's going to be less of a learning curve that you have when the time is right. Think of if you're to play basketball and you just decided to not play for 3 entire months and then pick it back up again. You'd have a hard time shooting versus even if you don't have the capital or maybe the deals are not just there, just get in those good habits of running deals and running pro formas to see if the numbers make sense. That's my best advice for anybody right now.
Well, you couldn't have said that better. I always tell people, I say, hey, don't even put your pencil down. Keep underwriting,
Mm.
keep looking at deals because you don't want to get out of the practice of that and making sure that you're looking at things from different vantage points. So, hey, thanks for being here. I always start my show with my guests by asking one question. Strategically, try to really get in and see who people are. And I keep saying I'm going to write a book on this one of these days because so many different words. But in one word, what best describes you personally and professionally?
So my word was a tool. I was just gonna go with a. Can I hyphenate art like a Swiss Army knife? Just because feel like I bring a lot to the table in all aspects of real estate. So real estate is a perfect blend between business, economics. You have to understand relationships. You have to understand accounting and finance, taxes. And I feel that as a professional, I bring a lot of that to the table between I have really good understanding of economics, of course, really good understanding about taxation, and really what moves the needle. Really good at underwriting pro formas. So I feel in this business, I am that Swiss Army knife, so to speak, and I would say that's the object that describes me.
That's interesting. I 3 years doing podcasts and asking that question probably for 2 of the 3 years for sure. And nobody's ever said they were a Swiss Army knife. So I guess we're going to try and open that toolbox up a little bit today and see what we can maybe help people to see that they could use. So talk a little bit about your background, how you got to be a CPA, what you've done, and what your journey's been to get here.
Yeah, always had a okay understanding of numbers. I never really liked calculus or trigonometry, but I was pretty good at mental math, so fractions, percentages, and I took an accounting class in high school and I liked it, and that's ended up, at the time I saw the job title and the average salaries, and I thought that the accounting profession was one that was probably going to be good to go into. So I went into the accounting profession, went there for college. I studied accounting and finance in college, and then I had my eyes set on working at corporate and doing corporate accounting, and I wanted to kind of move up that ladder and eventually become a partner at an accounting firm. And it was somewhere probably shortly after I started working at Deloitte, it's the largest accounting firm in the world. I was doing investment management consulting and hedge fund taxation there. I decided that I was kind of already helping people that were already rich and wealthy become even more rich and wealthy. And I decided that I wanted to help not the everyday person change their family tree, but I wanted to help the person in their family that was going to change their family tree. So it's a little different because I don't think everybody has the mindset and the power to build generational wealth, but I think there's one person. It only takes one person in a family tree to do that. So that's what I set out to do. So since then, it's been so I have 4 different companies in this space. So I have a real estate tax consulting firm. So we help clients navigate decisions, from a tax perspective, whether or not they should 1031, whether or not they should sell and buy, all these different types of scenarios. I have a regular tax preparation company that we actually help people with regular tax filings. I have a tax education company that for people who are not ready to sign up one-on-one or do the consulting, that we can actually do education for them so they can learn a little bit more without taking that big step. And then I also do real estate syndications as well. So I underwrite and I raise money for different deals. I've done anything from luxury short-term rentals, and then I've also done campgrounds and RV parks.
Nice. Do you have a preference in product class?
Yeah, right now, I mean, we've been really kind of dealing in this $2 to $5 million range, just because it's a little bit large for the regular investor to get their hands on, but it's also not big enough for like a hedge fund or something private equity to come pick up. So we've been dealing in this, $1 to $5 million range. That's kind of the asset class that I specifically focus on. I would say most of my clients are dealing in the probably sub $1.5 million range as far as purchase price. And that's across the board between short-term rentals, multifamily, long-term rental investments too.
Yeah. So, I was trying to, educate people around the fact that there's different size assets, right? And so that $2 to $5 million range is really kind of the smaller multifamily assets. But then, like the things I do, I'm more in the middle markets, right? We might do something that's 15 to, and I think middle markets go all the way to maybe 80 million. So, and then beyond 80 million is that's where some of the big players, the Blackstones or hedge funds are really playing a lot more. So, just to kind of bring some context to people who might be listening and saying, well, 2 to 5 million, that might be too big for me, or, that's not something I would do. Right.
Yeah.
But here's what's interesting about it is, and I have to say that I want people to go check out your social media, right? So your social media, and I'm going to run it across the bottom, is that learn like a CPA. And, you always have a ton of good information out there and a lot of good thoughts around saving and tax benefits. So I want to kind of talk about, tax strategy, tax benefits today a little bit. And one of the things that you said right away is you help people do 1031s. And, what occurred to me is we've had a couple people. We just rolled a deal out in Tulsa, and we're raising capital on it. But we had a couple people show up that had some 1031 money, and we're not set up to do it. Not on this particular offering, anyhow. But my question for you would be, when is the best time to do a 1031 or not, right? And how do you make that determination as an investor or looking at a deal? Does it always make sense to do a 1031, or does it sometimes make sense to pay the tax today and get the depreciation and everything else that would come, and maybe 1031 next time?
Yeah, I mean, good question. It starts by taking it just a little step back and looking at that asset. And what I personally do and help clients with is I do a net equity to net income comparison. So if I have let's say I have $200,000 in equity in a property and it's only making me 10 grand a year in net income, I would say, hey, your break even on your equity is 20 years. It would take you 20 years to make back what you could sell and walk away with today, or put that into another asset. And so then the question is, when I say reposition, I don't necessarily mean you have to sell all the time, but could you refinance, take a HELOC? Could you 1031? Could you just sell it outright? So that's kind of the behind the scenes of, okay, are we actually going to reposition this asset? And as far as if the 1031 makes sense, it does depend, because if you're in a down year where your income tax bracket isn't as high, instead of kicking the can down the road and deferring that tax burden, you might be better off, like you said, just paying the tax on it now and keeping on the cash, because you don't have to worry about redeploying that into another asset. I mean, some of the other factors to look at too are, how confident are you that you can, not only find a replacement property, which is a problem for some people sometimes, but also find one that's going to pencil out, because part of the things with the 1031 is most of the time you're also bringing debt to the table to buy up to another asset. There's so many considerations. Try doing one a few years ago when it was really a seller's market and stuff was getting listed on Friday and sold the next Friday. You couldn't do a 1031 because the market was moving so quick. Versus now, it's a little bit more of a, we think it's more of a buyer's market where you can facilitate a 1031 exchange because you have the time to acquire and buy more properties. It's just, do you want to? Because can you actually find the deals that'll pencil out? Another thing that I look at too, besides market risk and interest rate risk, is also sort of overall operator risk. So if working with some guy right now that has about $2 million in equity in a property that he's considering 1031ing, he's not going to find a spot to put that. He doesn't have the the wherewithal to go and do those bigger deals, because the deal that he had originally was just a 4-bedroom apartment in San Diego or something that's now worth $2 million. He doesn't have the network to facilitate that transaction, right? He's operator risk. Another thing would be, okay, let's say he does sell and he takes the $2 million and pays taxes on it. Now he's got $1.5 million left. That's a huge risk to deploy $1.5 million in cash at the same time.
So how long? And let's just do kind of a case study on those numbers, right? So if that individual who's got $2 million decides, hey, I'm just going to pay the taxes on it, how long will it take them to recoup? Say you go into a deal that's a 17% per year IRR before depreciation. Let's just use this deal we rolled out in Tulsa, right? It's a 17% IRR. He's getting a 7% preferred return along the way, and then we're going to take $1 million in depreciation year one because of the impact of that. So how long would it take somebody who rolled out $2 million out of a deal, paid the taxes, to make back their money and get ahead? Does it make sense in a deal like that for somebody?
Yeah, and that's really what you would want to outweigh in an Excel spreadsheet. You would kind of hypothetical map it out. Let's just say there's 3 different scenarios and see which one's most feasible. I'm trying to think of the stat off the top of my head, but if if he had, let's say it's 2 million whole that he could just roll into the deal versus maybe it's 1.5 or 1.6 that he rolls into the deal, how quickly can it take him to get, up to that $400,000 difference, right? You'd have to see what your return is compared to the amount invested. But I think the other argument on that is there's a lot of uncertainty to roll $2 million into somewhere else, taking on debt. There's a lot of factors there to consider.
So does somebody like that so here's an interesting question around this, right? And we all know that the tax code, there's so much in the tax code, right? But if somebody took $2 million, put it into an investment, didn't pay the taxes on it because it was mid-year, right? And then at the end of the year, they got, a piece of depreciation. Would that piece of appreciation offset the tax that was due on that? And could they just pay the difference then at the end of the year? Or do they have to do it right at sale?
Yeah. So as long as everything's classified as a passive activity. So I'll give you maybe a different example. Like, let's say you sold a property and you took, it was a rental property, long-term rental, short-term rental, multifamily, doesn't matter. And you sold it and you kept the cash. But then you took that cash. So now you have a capital gain, but you took that cash and you bought another asset or invested into a syndication. The depreciation that you get from the syndication would help to offset your sale on the original property. So we have a ton of clients where they, at least in this year, they will sell a property at a gain. Let's say it's a $200,000 gain. They will hold on to the cash, and then they will take that money. They'll figure out exactly how much that they need to invest into a syndication or another deal to get back enough depreciation that they can offset the gain on sale.
Sounds like that it really takes some good tax strategy or some tax planning in advance to think through what your transaction's going to look like from both sides.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and it's a lot of tax planning, but there's a lot of people that, again, we talk about all the risks of investing right now that people are seeing with, lenders are charging a lot of points. People may or may not want to do their own deals right now, but if they're sitting on, large passive capital gains, they can use syndications or other investment vehicles to generate losses that help them offset those gains. So, or, you might have, we see this all the time where, even myself, I have a portfolio of long-term rental, short-term rental properties that are all cash flowing. I could take that cash flow, put it into a syndication, and use the losses from the syndication to offset my portfolio of passive rental income.
Wow, that's an interesting thought too. So is 1031 the only vehicle? And I'm going to go back and use this comment again that that tax code is so deep. Do we actually know everything that's in there? But is 1031 the only vehicle to defer those taxes, or is there another way that you could defer taxes?
Yeah. So cost segregation and accelerated depreciation is essentially another way to defer taxes. So that's just speeding up the depreciation benefit that you get from owning a property. So for most commercial property, they're going to be depreciated over 39 years. So if I have a $390,000 building, I'm going to get 10 grand a year for 39 years. That accelerated depreciation allows you to front load that depreciation in year one. So instead of getting 10 grand a year for 39 years, you might get 80 grand the first year, and then maybe 6 grand for the rest of the remainder of the property. And that's essentially a tax deferral strategy, because you're front loading that depreciation and you're paying less in income tax in year one. And then you're going to pay that back at some point, similar to the 1031, right? You're deferring that tax liability down the road, generating you tax savings today. But the key point there is 3 things. It's debt, taxes, and inflation, because you can put $100,000 down to buy a $500,000 building. You get tax benefits on $500K. You can accelerate those tax benefits so that you get them all up front in year one. Okay. And then inflation is eroding at that because let's say I do get 50 grand of tax benefits in year one, even if I have to pay them back in year 10, I'm still getting an interest-free loan from the government the entire time. So it's a combination of using debt, taxes, and inflation to really help you build wealth.
Are you ready to skyrocket your investment portfolio and leave a legacy? Are you tired of inconsistent returns received in the stock market? Do you think it may be time to take a look at alternative investment options for your portfolio? Passive investing in multifamily real estate could be that option. With no tenants, trash, or toilets, providing a solid return on an annual basis that outperforms traditional investing, also receiving a monthly or quarterly return along the way. These lower risk and secure assets are a great hedge against inflation. If you want to learn more about these types of opportunities, you can email me directly to schedule a 15-minute consultation to see if you qualify. Just email me at mike@mikemorawski.com. All right. So we were talking about, how long it would take somebody to recoup if they went out and they paid off of $2 million, $500,000 in taxes, right? So if somebody invested, $1.5 million into a deal, and they had the potential over, and I'm just going to use basic math around this, and you check me on it. But if somebody had went in a deal and the multiple on it was a little over 2 times, so they're going to do better than double their money. So if somebody took $1.5 million after they paid the taxes, put it in a deal, now they're going to have $3 million at the end in 5 years, 4.5 years from now. But they're really short 500, so they're still up $1 million, not including the depreciation. So doesn't it almost, from a hypothetical 10,000 foot view, wouldn't it almost make sense just for somebody to even blow their 1031? Because they're still ahead, aren't they?
Yeah, obviously a lot of it would depend on their tax rate. If they blow it, and let's say they, for whatever reason, they're paying, the top. Well, they wouldn't have to pay the top tax rate on capital gains, but yeah, I mean, you could do a ton of hypothetical scenarios like that, and probably see. I think more. The problem I see is a lot of people think that the 1031 is you have to do it on every deal. I mean, we get people that call in or ask that they try to do 1031 exchanges on properties that don't even have capital gains, just because that's what they heard that you have to do every time you go to sell a property. Where it's like you could just sell that normally. You don't even have a capital gain to defer, or if you do, it's barely anything. You might, after realtor and closing costs and fees, you might have a $50,000, $100,000 gain that you could easily just offset by putting that money into another deal or doing a syndication. So you don't have to lock your money up and have to meet the 1031 exchange requirements, especially in today's market where it's harder to get deals to pencil out.
Yeah, I guess that I've never really thought about that, but I guess just because of the buzz in the marketplace, you got to do a 1031, people would automatically think that's what they would have to do. I actually met a guy who said that they have a program that is similar to a 1031, and I'm going to have him on the podcast here in the next couple of weeks. But he's got a program that he says it's similar to a 1031 without doing the 1031, right? Like they're a intermediary and they hold on to the capital, and you don't have to deal with any of the timelines that you have to deal with in a 1031. It sounded interesting. That's why I was asking you earlier if you knew, another way in the tax code. So anyhow, let's just kind of shift gears a little bit. I know that you do a lot of training and teaching on social media, and you have a lot of content out there, just kind of helping educate people. What do you think are a couple of the key things that people need to know about, taxes, tax incentives in real estate? why should somebody today invest in a syndication? What will it do for them?
So I always it always goes back to who writes the tax law. So it's Congress who writes the tax law, and it's made up of pretty much business owners, investors, and people who own real estate. And so it's no wonder that they write the tax laws to incentivize certain behavior. It incentivizes ownership of property, it incentivizes investing, and it essentially penalizes, W-2 workers. It penalizes people who earn their money through work for a living because they pay a higher tax rate. But just investing in real estate alone, like let's say I have my first multifamily property or even a syndication, because of the way that income stream is taxed, it's considered passive income, which means you're not paying Social Security and Medicare tax like you are at your W-2 job. So if you do work a W-2, you see a box that says Social Security, and you see a box that says Medicare. That's your basically your working man or woman tax, because not only do you pay taxes on the income, but you also pay taxes for Social Security and Medicare. In real estate, you don't have that. So right away, by investing into rental real estate, whether it's long-term rentals, syndications, etc., you basically save 7.5% right away because of the way that income stream is classified to you.
Interesting. So, and this is, maybe kind of a loaded question, but they say that the taxes that you pay or a typical W-2 worker pays is probably around 37%, right?
That's the top bracket for a W-2 worker. Yeah. I mean, everybody's heard the saying like Warren Buffett pays more in taxes than his secretary does. It's not because he actually dollar for dollar amount pays more in taxes, but it's the percentage of income that he's taxed on is less than his secretary. So his secretary might have a 24% tax rate effectively. He's got a much lower tax rate because he's able to pretty much zero out all his income due to the passive losses that he's getting from real estate.
So, what's interesting though is you pay taxes on your income, and then you pay taxes at the grocery store and on gas, and you pay taxes on product you buy. So you're really paying more tax than just what you're being taxed on your income, right? They call that double taxation?
Yeah, just because there's different types of taxes out there. So that's why it's like Texas is notorious for this. So Texas has no income tax. So they get a lot of people to move to Texas because there's no income tax, but they obviously kill you on the property taxes. Try having a deal penciled out in like Austin or San Antonio right now. It just doesn't make sense because the property taxes are sky high there. Right. But yeah, so part of being, entrepreneur or real estate owner is trying to get some of those costs that you have or you incur that otherwise wouldn't have been deductible because you're a W-2, but now because you're a real estate investor or owner that they do become deductible. Like me, for example, like I have 4 different businesses that I run. So if I go and speak somewhere, if I have lunch with somebody, odds are I could probably deduct those expenses under one of my businesses because I'm an entrepreneur and a real estate investor and not just a W-2 employee.
Yeah, it's interesting. So what other kind of write-offs can you find with inside real estate offerings and not from a passive side, but from the active side? So if you're an active investor, if you're dealing with the tenants' trash and toilets, what are some of the typical or atypical type of write-offs that you can write off against your real estate?
Yeah, pretty much anything that's going to be considered ordinary necessary to the property. So obviously your insurance, interest, property taxes, you're going to have utilities. Those are all things that you can deduct. But I really look at what is it that you're also doing in real estate. You might have a car, you might have a vehicle, you're definitely on a phone or a laptop. So those are some of the things that not a lot of people are thinking about when it comes to running a property that they're actually able to deduct. A lot of people, realtors are somehow, realtors, for example, are like notorious for this, but sometimes they'll go and buy $50,000, $60,000 cars just so that they can write them off on their taxes, which is not always the best thing to do, because when it comes to getting a loan, if I'm a realtor and I'm making, let's say, $100,000 and I buy a $40,000 car, the bank is actually going to say, that I only made $60,000 because they're going to subtract the car from my income. Now, if I'm a real estate investor and I have properties and I have that depreciation that we talked about, so let's say I make $100,000, but I have $100,000 of depreciation as well. Even though cash hit my bank account, I have a loss for tax purposes. So that's where it gets really good, because that, what you were saying before, is about, it's all about, and this is what I tell people all the time, it's not about how much money you make, but it's how you make it. And the IRS has done studies on this. You could have a doctor making let's say $500,000 at W-2. You could have a real estate investor making the same amount through real estate. And we just got done wrapping up a return for a client like this, where $500,000 of annual cash flow to real estate doesn't pay anything in taxes because they have enough write-offs from depreciation. But that doctor that's making $500,000 out of W-2, he or she's stuck paying taxes.
Well, it's interesting. I like what you said. It's not how much you make, but how you make it.
Mm-hmm.
It's about strategy, isn't it? So,
yeah.
You know what's amazing to me too about realtors, and this is not, I was a realtor for 15 years, so I'm not bashing realtors here.
Mm-hmm.
But for every 10 realtors you ask if they invest in real estate, 9 of them will tell you no. Because, what's amazing to me, and especially on the commercial side, the commercial brokers, they don't even invest in their own product, right? Which is kind of amazing to me.
And no, I mean, that's 100% right. I mean, the amount of them that, when you think about it, especially realtors, like you said, on the commercial side, they're spending a ton of time like helping other people get rich, but they're not really building too much wealth for themselves. Because think about it, the income stream for being a realtor is ordinary income, it's regular income, but the income stream from being an investor is obviously a lot different. And then I would also throw out there too, if you're a real estate agent and you're an investor, that opens up part of the tax code that's probably the most beneficial out of anything, and that's what's called real estate professional status. So that's where you're a full-time real estate investor, or I'm sorry, you might be a full-time real estate operator. So an agent or a broker paired with an investor, but they have the ability to pretty much treat the losses from their real estate investments and use those to offset their income from their jobs. So we've had let's say $250,000 real estate agents offset all their income because they had enough losses coming from their rental properties.
Yeah, so that gives you the ability really to pay less taxes. You have less taxable consequences, right?
Yep.
So, hey, what would you, how about a piece of advice for people today looking at real estate offerings, looking at real estate deals? What should they do from a passive standpoint as a passive investor? Maybe how should they look at something today for themselves as a benefit to their overall building their generational wealth?
Yeah, I think it first starts with identifying your life plan. So, what type of income do you need? Because right off the bat, the quicker you can convert that income from W-2 or business income into passive income through real estate, whether that's you own the real estate or you invest in the syndication, the better off you're going to be. But really develop that life plan of, how much money do I want to make per year? How much equity do I want? Who do I want, holding the reins to that money? Who do I want making those decisions? I think it starts with creating that life plan for yourself. I need $100,000 of annual income coming from, real estate deals, figuring out what those goals are. And then you can kind of work backwards to figure out, hey, here's how much money I need to invest per year, or here's how much money I need to save. I need, like you said earlier, I need to make X percent on this deal to meet your goals. I think the problem I see most of the time in this space is people are not thinking more than one step ahead. A lot of people are just so focused on the next deal or the next investment opportunity. And it kind of goes back to an old quote where, you shouldn't skate to where the puck is, but you want to skate to where the puck's going to be. And it's not, like I said, it's not just thinking one deal now, but it's thinking of, multiple deals in advance, 3, 4, 5 deals. Because what we see on like the regular investor side is people are not harnessing their debt to income ratio as well as they should, where they go and borrow a bunch of money in their personal name, and now their debt to income is maxed out. So then they're forced to do like what are called DSCR loans or commercial loans, loans that are non-QM and not in their personal name, and so that comes with worse returns, higher interest rates typically than a conventional loan. So these are all things that we kind of see investors make the mistake of when they're first starting if they don't have the proper guidance.
Yeah, interesting. Hey, Ryan, thanks for being here today. As we wind down, I always like to ask 3 kind of bonus questions. So,
okay,
what's the best book you ever read?
The best book I've ever read personally, probably 7 Habits of Highly Effective People.
Oh, Stephen
Covey. Ever said that one? Yeah. So that one, I would also say there's a few new ones that have slotted my top. It would be what's called Product Launch Formula by Jeff Walker. That's the book I think I told you about.
Yeah.
And then as well as there's another book called $100 Million Offers by Alex Hormozi. Those 2 right now are the best. If you're starting any business or you're an entrepreneur, like those are the best books.
Hey, that was a great book, that $100 million offered by Hormozi. I actually had somebody yesterday shoot me a text, say, "Hey, your content looks more and more like Alex Hormozi's."
Oh yeah, yeah.
I thought, wow, that's the greatest compliment, right?
Yeah.
Hey, and how about best restaurant in the Chicago area?
Best restaurant that I like to go to. I just ate at one. What was it called? It was really good. Overall, best restaurant chain. Probably one of. I like Lou Malnati's pizza. I'll say that.
Okay. Yeah.
That's like a Chicago thing. Yeah.
And last thing, tourist attraction. Best tourist attraction.
That I've been to or that I want to go to?
Either way, if it's something you want to go to.
Yeah, I definitely want to see the Statue of Liberty, but I haven't gone there yet.
Oh, interesting. Yeah. You haven't been to New York?
Never. No.
Okay. Yeah.
I've never stepped foot on New York soil. No.
Should go 4th of July.
Is that the time to go? That's a perfect time to go, right?
Fireworks in the Hudson River are awesome.
Right.
Yeah, pretty cool. Hey, thanks for being here. How do people connect with you if they want to connect with you?
Yeah, so it's going to be on all social media platforms. It's going to be Learn Like a CPA. I still answer all my direct messages, so feel free to reach out. And then if you're on Facebook, go to Tax Strategies for Real Estate Investors Facebook group. We got about 6,000 people in the Facebook group answering questions daily about real estate. So.
And I just want to encourage people to follow you too, because you do put out a lot of great tips, ideas, suggestions, and thoughts around investing. You do help people with taxes, right? And tax planning and things like that. So if people are looking for a new accountant or CPA, you'd be somebody they could reach out to. So I want to encourage people to go do that. But hey, thanks for being here today. And sorry about the little hiccup along the way here, which nobody will really ever know about. And,
no worries.
We'll look forward to seeing you again soon.